PowerHouse, presented by Alliant Energy.
Alliant Energy, we're on for you.
We're starting here at an organic farm and bed and breakfast in Browntown, Wisconsin called In Serendipity. Here the owners have made a conscious effort to use renewable energy and sustainable building materials. And join us is one of the owners, Lisa Kivers. And Lisa, thanks for having us out today. And first tell us a little bit about In Serendipity.
Sure, thanks for coming. In Serendipity is our farm and bed and breakfast here in Browntown, Wisconsin. And our passion is sustainable living and ways we can incorporate a more earth-friendly lifestyle. So we're constantly experimenting with different types of renewable energy, recycled building materials here on the farm, and are looking at things real holistically, from our food systems, our energy systems, our livelihood, and how can we combine all of those to tread a little lighter on the earth.
Well, Lisa, it's interesting because you're very self-sufficient out here.
We are. We try to be. We grow most of our own food for both ourselves and the bed and breakfast guests, and generate all of our own electricity.
Now, tell us a little bit about the building behind us, because it looks like an old barn.
It basically is a old granary, which you see on a lot of the Wisconsin back roads around here. And it had gone through its lifespan as far as being a granary and was getting a little bit dilapidated. So we were trying to come up with basically a new life for it. So what we did was retrofit it utilizing straw bale construction. We wanted to preserve the essence of the barn and give it new life in this sense, becoming a greenhouse. So what we did was we stripped down the existing timbers to the foundation of the granary and then filled it in with straw bale, literally stacking straw bales, which a farmer down the road grew for us, and then chicken wires placed over it, and then it's all stitched together, literally sewn, and then stuccoed. There's a cement-based plaster on the outside and then an earthen-based plaster on the inside. And as you can maybe tell from all the steps, it's one of these projects where a lot of hands make lighter work. So we've been very fortunate to have our community around here, our friends and neighbors lend wonderful helping hands.
And our viewers on PowerHouse are always thinking about R value, and I know you've got some great R value with that straw bale, right?
Straw bale construction, specifically with this, has an R value of 43. So it's huge, and that's our tremendous energy saving costs in running a greenhouse.
And again, when we think about the typical house, R19, so you really have done a nice job with that in terms of the insulation of it. Now, thinking about a greenhouse, because that's what it's gonna be a greenhouse for you, needs to be warm. So how are you gonna heat it?
That's a little bit of the experiment with this. We'd like to be able to utilize this greenhouse with close to a net zero energy cost, which is quite unusual for greenhouse growing space. We hope to do that through two solar elements, both passive solar, the windows and skylights and the sunlight coming in, and active solar elements through solar heating panels and a heat exchange system. And John can talk to you more about that if you want to go see the panels.
I see him down there at the panels. And Lisa, thank you for, again, having us out here, and I'm going to go hook up with John.
Great, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Hi, John.
Hi, Pete.
How are you?
Good.
This is John Ivanko, also one of the owners here at In Serendipity, and John was talking with Lisa about the greenhouse, and tell us a little bit more about how you're going to warm this. I know you've got a couple different ways you're doing that.
Well, as you know, Pete, greenhouses take an immense amount of energy to heat. And so our thought is, as we begin our evolution to doing some value-added crops here, is to take the upper section of that greenhouse, add in some more windows, basically where right now the roofing material is, and then we're going to be using a combination of passive and active solar thermal to heat the system, to heat the greenhouse. And what we're going to be doing is, with the passive, it's just having a lot of tanks in there. The water is a very, very good storage of heat. Then we're shifting to, or I've already added the active solar part of things with the solar thermal collectors. We have 10 collectors, and in the middle of the winter, the angle is sort of optimized for middle of winter use. We're estimating to generate or collect about 240,000 BTU just in one day during the winter time, and that's obviously with the greenhouse when we most need that heat. The fluid is then piped or pumped underground into the greenhouse, and there's about 700 gallon total of water that will basically store that heat. There's a heat exchanger inside one of the tanks in there, taking the heat, which is basically captured on these collectors with an antifreeze solution, and it goes through a coil inside the larger tank, and it's exchanged with the water, and then what we'll do is create a liquid to air, another heat exchanger to blow it in. So we'll run it through somewhat like a radiator, and that will heat the greenhouse.
That's fascinating, John. Again, as I look at the collector panels, and then as we looked at the greenhouse, we're here on the south side of the farm, facing south, again, to optimize that the winter sun, correct?
Absolutely. And we're fortunate that a lot of the buildings originally were situated in many cases that way. And we're taking advantage of that in a lot of our retrofitting of our structures and where we've decided to place a lot of the renewable energy technologies.
Well, I know you've got the collectors here, but you also have panels up in the house. Can we go take a look at those?
Absolutely.
All right. John, we're taking a look at the panels in the house. Tell us about those.
Yeah, we have 3 collectors we use to heat water. Actually, it's the same, very much similar to the system we have in the greenhouse. We're heating antifreeze solution. It goes through some pipes down into our basement. Then it's exchanged in a large tank. But that water, instead of going through some sort of a liquid to air heat exchanger, it's actually going into folks' showers in the morning when they turn on the shower or turn on the faucet. So we use it for domestic hot water.
Now, positioned a little bit differently up on the roof of the house?
Absolutely. Our big thing for the greenhouse was get energy, basically the heat in the middle of the winter. In our case here, we're looking to optimize things for the spring and for the fall and somewhat for the summer, because that's when we have the most amount of gas, and that's when we go and need the water more frequently and use it more regularly.
So again, you're very self-sufficient from that standpoint.
Self-sufficient, but it's really important. We took the first 6 or 7 years of our time here on the farm to work on energy conservation, whether it's Energy Star appliances, switching lights to fluorescent bulbs, all these different things in combination really need to be done first before you make bigger investments into the other renewable energy systems.
All good energy conservation practices that we like to talk here on PowerHouse, John. Now, again, we have to talk about, as I look over here, the wind turbine.
We have a 10 kW Bergey wind generator. It's about 120 foot up on a guide lattice tower. It generates an estimated 12,000 kilowatt hours a year, and it's pretty straightforward from the standpoint of its electricity. It comes in as what's called wild AC. Then in an inverter in the basement, that electricity is changed around to match the electrical utility grid.
Now, the wind turbine, very impressive, but I know there's some expenses that come with that.
Yeah, wind generators are a big investment up front, but you have to look at over their expected life of 15 to 20 years. There is an economic payback. Our system in completion probably costs closer to around $35,000 to $40,000, but people can expect, depending on what combination, what kind of generator they get, to spend almost as high as $50,000 or $60,000 for a wind generator. Compare that to a smaller photovoltaic system. Our 500 watt system cost around $7,000, and if you look at the solar thermal, like the collectors we have on our roof, that's really the best and most economical way to go with things, because the payback is so relatively short, and that cost us about $4,000.
But again, it's very important, as Lisa joins us now, though, that, again, first and foremost, energy conservation practices first and foremost, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's, from our perspective, that's also the ones where you see immediate effects. With the wind generator, it's going to take us a while of a lot of a generation to actually start paying itself back. Whereas you change the fluorescent bulb, your energy savings is immediate.
Well, again, very impressive. Lisa and John, thanks for having us out here in Serendipity. It's been neat to see everything that you're doing in terms of the energy conservation and generation as well. So thanks for having us on.
Great to have you here.
All right, now don't go anywhere, because we're going to go and visit now a wind farm where a utility company is generating power for thousands of customers. So stay with us.